Hello, I'm Gypsy Joe, your gypsy journalist from Kushti TV, bringing to you today the most violent fight ever seen in a boxing ring between arguably two of boxing's most ever violent men. Yes, a fight would end in tragedy. Yeah, and the Essex boys who fatally got shot in 1995 were rumoured to play a massive part in this fight. It's clouded with controversy until this very day. Before I continue with this fascinating story, please show your support and press that subscribe button and the like button and the notification, the bell, so you will get notification on my, furthermore videos coming forward. Yeah, so let's go into these fighters. These brutal warriors had 73 wins between them, but listen to this. Out of 73 wins of their victims, only 8 guys went the distance with them, 65 knockouts. So no wonder this was a war and one of the most violent fights ever seen in a boxing ring. So of course we want to know now, who is it? Yeah, and when was it? It was on the 25th of February at the London Arena, Millwall, 1995. And the first fighter I'm bringing into focus was Gerald McClellan of the USA, born in Illinois, USA. Yeah, a violent man, Gerald McClellan, had a taste for violence, loved dog fighting. There's so much that he used to put his dog to get him ready for the big fights on a lesser dog, that he would taste blood and even kill another dog. That was not a very nice side to this man, was it? But it was very much rumoured to be true, yeah, that of Gerald McClellan. He also, these are the words of Stan Johnson, his trainer at the time, he knocked the row of his front teeth out.
What? Broke my teeth going training too.
And as you can hear, Stan says that he jokes and he thinks it was deliberate.
Some people say he did it on purpose.
It wasn't a miscue. You know, a violent man. Good, lean looking man, good looking guy, lean fella. Didn't look a really violent type, but he was the middleweight champion of the world. And who would he be taking on? He would be taking on the super middleweight champion of the world. He'd be the Dark Destroyer, Nigel Ben, from Hilford, Essex, just east of London. Now, Nigel Ben learned his boxing trade in the British Army. Man loved the fight, served in the British Army for a few years, and yet became the ABA champion, a brutal two-handed warrior, a violent man that was rumoured once to have struck a bloke. In fact, he was accused of striking a bloke with a glass ashtray. He once dubbed himself Satan's right-hand man. So you can see these two boys were far from squeaky clean. They were violent men that loved a fight. How did it start? So the fight started exactly how we thought, like a war. And McClellan, the middleweight champion, had Ben, the super middleweight champion, Ben, on the ropes. And Ben was ducking and weaving for all his life. He just could not. He avoided most of the shots, but he just could not avoid them all. And he was struck by this hard-hitting McClellan. And so hard he went through the ropes onto the canvas. And it seemed all like, in fact, many believed, this first part of this controversy was, many believed he did not make the 8 count back. Yeah, if he went out the ring, he had 20 seconds. If you were on the apron, which he was on the apron, in fact, an official would give him just even touched him almost, and then sort of semi-stopped, almost encouraged him not to either fall on him or to get back in the ring. But he had 10 seconds to make it back, and many believe it was more like 12 or 13. But the ref, the Frenchman, he insisted that it was an 8 count, and he made it back somehow or another, saw his way through the first round. Yeah, a pattern was continuing where it was McClellan giving out most of the punishment, Ben somehow or another just holding on, but firing back ferociously with some dangerous punches themselves. Rounds 2, 3, 4. When we get around the mid-stage, around rounds 5 or 6, there's something really telling in the middle part of the rounds, because if you take a look here, Gerald McClellan's fighting with his gum shield hanging out of his mouth. He's deliberately putting it out of his mouth, almost like he's looking for extra oxygen. But he still continues boxing beautifully. It's quite really bizarre. I don't think I've ever seen it before or since, but this didn't stop him still staying right in that fight, although he seems to be looking for more oxygen. It's quite bizarre. And this continues the pattern. He's moving around the ring nicely, as you can see, and he is firing some wicked blows, and he's taking some wicked blows. But it's the war that was expected. In round 8, have a look again. It looks as though Ben, for the second time, is down, out, and finished. But somehow or another, he just makes it back to his feet. Round 9, and it continues, and Ben's coming a little more into the fight. And then his 10th and fatal round, the final round of the fight. McClellan goes down for the first time, and then he takes a knee the second time. Now sadly at this stage many people think he's quitting. What we don't know is the aftermath and the tragedy that's about to unfold. Seen in his corner here, clearly in trouble, Ben celebrating. At this stage he don't know the extent of the damage that McClellan would endure, and they head off to the local London hospital, both fighters actually. And when the dust settles, it turns out that sadly McClellan was in a coma for 11 days. It would emerge, he had permanent brain damage, 80% deaf, blind, and bound to a wheelchair. I think he's barely making it to his feet with the aid of his sisters. So yeah, an horrendous situation for McClellan. Nigel Ben, nose damage, jaw damage, and a shadow in the brain. So he says, and this is where the controversy does not end in this brutal, most violent fight ever seen in a British or even a world boxing ring. It doesn't quite end. In a documentary some years later, this is what Stan Johnson, the trainer of Gerald McClellan, had to say. Listen to this.
Did Nigel Ben cheat for that fight?
Absolutely, he was juicy as a motherfucker.
He point blank clearly accuses Nigel Ben of taking performance enhancing drugs. Now of course Nigel Ben's innocent of this and he denies this.
I'm not doing no drugs. I've never done drugs.
But what enlightens that controversy and that rumour is that the Essex boys, the famous Essex boys that were involved in that infamous shooting in Redditon, Essex, 1995, just 10 months after the actual fight. Now on the way into the ring, here you can see Pat Tate, arguably the leader of the Essex boys, walking in the ring with Nigel Ben, and you can see him really shouting for joy when Ben pulls it off in the crowd. Now what's that got to do with Nigel Ben taking performance enhancing drugs? Well, what we clearly know is that Pat Tate and Tony Tucker were a couple of steroid heads. I'm not sure about Craig Roll, but the Essex boys, they were massively into steroids and clearly close friends by him walking him into the ring. So that just enlightens 1995, the same year, they're knocking around with this crowd, they're clubbing, they're doing other drugs by their own admissions. It just enlightens that little bit, you know, your best mates taking steroids, just adds a bit of fuel to the fire. Did he take them? And furthermore, more recently, right the way on up to 2023, February 2023, yeah, still all this time up, what further could enlighten suspicion? Well, there's an old saying, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. You very often are what your father is. And of course, who got done for performance enhancing drugs in February 2023 was Conor Ben, son of Nigel. Yes, so this is why it sort of puts his smoke screen up. And of course, I will say Nigel's guilty of none of that. Can I ever prove that the count was long in this fight? Can we ever prove performance enhancing drugs were taken? Can we ever prove that the referee should have stopped the fight? Can we ever prove that Stan Johnson in his corner should have stopped the fight? That's stuff I cannot prove, but it does make for great debate. Yeah, after life, the sister of Gerald McClellan, Lisa, kindly looks after him. He's got a massive payout, they live comfortably financially eventually, so there's not an issue there, but obviously money can't buy it. But I am pleased to say he's, you know, he's got some sense of humour back. He loves boxing, he loves people talking about boxing. Gerald's got a little bit of sense of humour and some quality of life, whilst most of it's ripped away from him on that fateful night. And I am very pleased to say that Nigel Ben has changed the man in his corner. Yeah, when he once said he was the right hand man of Satan, he's now got the good Lord Jesus Christ right in his corner, and I'm hoping that's the power he can bring for the continuation of his life. That's a wonderful story. They were great warriors, clouded in controversy. Nothing I know, nothing's proven, but it makes for great debate. One thing for sure, Yes, the saddest ending almost to a boxing match you could ever see. But it was a shame because it ripped away one of the greatest, most violent fights ever seen in a boxing ring. Thanks for tuning in. Next time,